It's Raiders Week. Coming up tonight on Broncos Weekend, we're discussing what we learned from Denver's Week 3 win over the 49ers and what aspects of that game plan might be effective this week against the winless Raiders. Later on, we'll break down what is contributing to the Raiders' rough start to the season and how the Broncos can benefit from their shortcomings. Broncos Weekend starts right now. Hello everyone and welcome inside the Broncos Media Center. I'm Alexis Perry alongside Steve Atwater and Big O as we get you up to speed on everything you need to know prior to the Broncos' first AFC West matchup this season. This Sunday in Sin City, the Broncos and Raiders will go head-to-head for the first time since these franchises made some big changes over the offseason. While there are new head coaches calling the shots and a plethora of new faces on their respective rosters, this rivalry remains intact. You guys know this rivalry well, so how is Raiders Week just a little bit different than any other week on the schedule, Steve?
Well, it's simple. We hate the Raiders.
We hate them.
Broncos country does not like the Raiders, and the Raiders, they're not too fond of Broncos country either, so it makes for a good week of football.
Fan base. This fan base lets you know immediately. That's one thing as a rookie that I learned in 2011. We don't like the Raiders. And I didn't know how bad we didn't like the Raiders until this fan base taught me how bad we don't like the Raiders.
The Broncos head into this game coming off an 11-10 win over the 49ers, while the Raiders fell short in their comeback against the Titans to remain one of the two teams in the league without a dub this season. Starting with Denver's Sunday Night Football showdown with San Francisco, we were reminded that this Denver defense is made up of absolute dogs. Bradley Chubb claims that they are the best in the league and the stats are trending that way. So guys, what worked so well against the 49ers last week?
They came out, they were physical, they were tough, they were flying around to the ball. And then when you have Bradley Chubb and Randy Gregory, that certainly helps. And then Josie Jewell, 10 tackles on the day. And he missed a couple of tackles. He overran a couple of tackles. He could have had 15 tackles in that game. But, man, just a great game with guys flying around. Looked like they were having a great time.
I think it's two things when you look at the Denver defense this year that makes them truly special. One, Ezer Everett's doing a heck of a job of sending blitzes from all over the field, really not letting an offensive coordinator understand where the blitz is coming from. We saw Josie Jewell come up with a huge sack where he is that fifth defender that's rushing the quarterback. And the second thing, which I think is the absolute most important thing, is Ezer Everett has done an exceptional job of making those halftime adjustments. But it's not just any halftime adjustments, right? It's like he's looking into a crystal ball, understanding where these offensive coordinators are getting ready to go with their halftime adjustments and implementing it in that 12-minute span that he has to talk to the Broncos defense during halftime.
Do you guys think the approach that we saw last week could work this week against the Raiders?
Yes, absolutely. I think you're going to have to mix it up. You're going to have to send blitzes all over the place. Derek Carr's holding on to the ball a lot longer than usual. Already has 8 sacks given up. That's been the frustrating thing for this defense the last couple of years for the Broncos, where Von Miller and company were just frustrated because they weren't getting to him because he was throwing the ball too quickly. But with the back end and these defensive backs, the coverage has been sticky, so those quarterbacks have had to hold on to the ball a little longer than what they would like.
Yeah, having the combination of changing up the looks, changing up where pressure's coming up, changing up how many guys are coming, along with the talent that we have on the defensive side of the ball, I think it's been a really good recipe, and I think it's going to go a long way throughout the season.
Well, in a game where the defense really stole the headlines, obviously the offense came up big when it mattered the most there in that late fourth quarter scoring drive. What were some of the bright spots for this Broncos offense, specifically on that fourth quarter drive?
I'll tell you what, having gone with 9 3-and-outs prior to that drive there, I can imagine that the confidence probably wasn't at the highest level, but for them to be able to come together and put that drive together and go down and score that touchdown to Melvin Gordon, I think that did a lot for the confidence in really everything that we're trying to do. Russell Wilson has been preaching the point, stick to the process, stick to the process, stick to the process, and we finally got a chance to see what happens when we do that.
Up until the fourth quarter, when Russ found Kendall Hinton on that play, there was only 2 wide receivers that had caught balls from him, Jerry Jeudy and Cortland Sutton. That specific play, what I loved about it is that all 10 guys outside of Russell Wilson continues to play because they trust that Russell Wilson's going to be able to escape that pressure and continue going out. I know that Dalton Reisner, he was trying to block Kinlaw, and Kinlaw got by him, but then Dalton Reiser comes back and gets a second block on him. And then you see Kendall Hinton down the field be able to create some space and get open. And Russell Wilson, as he says, he went left, right, and was able to get a huge explosive play for this offense.
A little shade there for Pete Carroll, gotta love it. How critical will it be, though, for this offense to find some rhythm earlier in the game, specifically at Allegiant Stadium?
I think it's definitely important, especially considering the Raiders haven't won a game this season. They're going to come out super fired up, super ready to go. So we got to make sure that we're hitting on all levels. And I know the team wants to do that, right? They want to go out. They want to put points on the board early. They want to get all the naysayers off their backs.
Right.
But it's a process, and we got to keep in mind that this team has been together for a really relatively short period of time. And it's just going to take a little while, but it's coming. It's coming, Broncos country.
Last week was tough sledding. That's a top 3 defense in the San Francisco 49ers defense. So I don't care how it looked, right? I get it. It's the 3 and outs and everybody's pissed off and everybody's mad in Broncos country. But that's a really, really good defense that this team played against. Going against the Raiders this week, they got a couple guys, but they can be exposed. So it's very important to get off to a fast start. It's very important to turn those almost touchdowns into touchdowns. And it's very important each and every drive to make sure that you're coming away with 7 as opposed to 3.
Well, I think we'd be remiss to leave out the Broncos special teams unit. The punter, Corliss Waitman, won AFC Special Teams Player of the Week. He was pinning the 49ers deep, obviously inside the 5 a couple of times. How did special teams affect the outcome of that game, and how critical are they this week against the Raiders?
It's huge. You know, each and every week I continue to say, man, they're this close. They're so close. I know Montrell Washington is going to return one this year. You saw what Corliss Waitman did, and I love the fact that he told the whole world that he slept with the game ball. Because guess what? I did too the first time I got a game ball.
Did you really?
Absolutely. You know, those don't come that close. You don't get those all the time. That's special. So I love that he did that. Last year in San Francisco, we actually brought in Corliss Waitman, and he's been a journeyman and being bounced around all the league. And because he's a left-footed kicker, you know, that ball spins differently. And it was nice to see him come back with a huge week, have a couple inside the 5, and just absolutely be a rock-solid player for the Broncos, where it's no longer where offense has to do too much or defense has to do too much, or when you get on special teams, I got to do too much. We have 3 phases that really could count on the other 2 phases to do their job, and that's what makes this Bronco team so special as opposed to the last 6 years since they won Super Bowl 50.
Yeah, man, it's extremely important for special teams, especially the coverage teams, to go down there and create a long field for the opposing team's offense. And we did a wonderful job of doing that. Corliss Waitman pinning the ball down there inside the 10-yard line. You got to give some props also to Essang Bassett and Mike Boone getting down there. And, you know, Corliss Waitman, he did that.
You always gonna mention your guy Bassett, huh?
Yeah, well, yeah. Oh, no, he's back. There we go. That's right. But they made it happen. They're making a longer field, making it more difficult. And when you have that third element, the special teams contributing, making plays, not just doing okay, but being exceptional, you're going to win a lot of ball games. And that also contributed to us winning this ball game. It wasn't just that last drive, but those special teams played a part as well.
Okay, well, as impressive as he was, hopefully we don't see too much of the punter Corliss Waitman this week. Still to come here on Broncos Weekend, we'll look back on the Raiders' Week 3 loss to the Titans and see what weaknesses the Broncos might be able to exploit this Sunday. Don't go anywhere. You're watching Broncos Weekend with Steve Atwater and Orlando Franklin. I'm Alexis Perry, and like I mentioned a little bit earlier, this week the Broncos will visit the Las Vegas Raiders, who have yet to get a win so far this season. So let's take a deep dive into what's going wrong for Josh McDaniels and the Raiders so far this season, starting with their most recent game against the Titans, and more specifically on 3rd down. Vegas went 1 for 12 on 3rd downs last week, while Denver's defense allowed the 49ers just 1 3rd down conversion on 10 tries. Guys, what is not clicking for Vegas right now in those 3rd down situations?
Chemistry. It's just a lack of chemistry. Josh McDaniels is trying to push the ball down the field. You could tell that Derek Carr is not comfortable doing that. He's used to being able to catch the ball, you know, drop back to 3 yards and then just let it rip. where he gets very uncomfortable when defenders are around him. So you could tell with that, you're seeing guys like Darren Waller, he's not coming up as big as he normally would. And the missing of Hunter Renfrow, that's a chain mover. But I look at those things and, that offensive line, like center, right guard, right tackle specifically, is an absolute nightmare for the Raiders right now.
They just don't look like they're on the same page. They've been close each game. They haven't been blown out, but man, I know it's got to be super frustrating for them. And then Josh McDaniels, with the history that he had coming in there, I'm sure a lot of people are questioning what's going on behind the closed doors there. So it's a lot more going on besides football, I believe, there in Las Vegas. But come Sunday, we got to be ready for the best Las Vegas team yet.
Yeah, Big O, you mentioned the offensive line. They've used 7 different offensive line combinations so far this season. How does that carousel really impact how effective a offense can be?
Drastically. If I'm Bradley Chubb and Randy Gregory this week, before every series, I'm sitting there on the sideline, rock, paper, scissors for who gets to go against the right tackle. Because whoever goes against the right tackle, they're getting ready to have a big day. And when you're in the run game or you're in the passing game, a quarterback can't rely on the center, the right tackle, the right guard for the Raiders. So you see Derek Carr, he's getting antsy back there in the passing game. As a running back, you don't even want to run nowhere near those guys. So it changes everything that you could do offensively, but it's a great thing for the Broncos defense this week.
Well, in terms of Derek Carr's pass catchers, you mentioned Darren Waller. Last week, he had a really tough game. He's credited for 1 official drop, but I think Raiders Nation is saying it's about 3. Steve, I know you watched the tape. What'd you see?
Yeah, well, it was at least 2. The third one is kind of subjective. He got his hand on it. I've seen him reel those balls in several times in the past, but I don't know, something seems to be off with him this year. I think what it could be is the arrival of Davante Adams. When you got another superstar in the building, not necessarily looking, the fans aren't expecting as much out of you as they were in the past, and now they're looking for Davante Adams to be that guy that may have done something to his psyche. But again, we got to prepare like he's going to be the Darren Waller that we've known in the past, and we got to make sure that we keep him covered the same way we're going to keep Davante Adams covered.
For me, I think he's comfortable. You get that shiny new contract, you get paid, you get a little relaxed.
Not the
So
moolah.
you think he's comfortable, you think he's uncomfortable?
Yeah, I think he's a little comfy, man. He got that big new contract, right? So I don't got to work as hard. Don't got to do anything. Hey, Josh McDaniels, you're the guru. Draw it up for me. I should be getting balls. When you get that money, guys have a tendency to get a little complacent. We know that Darren Waller has been a heck of a football player, but now his money shows you that he's a heck of a tight end in this league, and that could just change your mindset like that, especially when you're supposed to have the offensive guru or the whisperer out there where, hey, coach, design it for me. You guys paid me, so I should be getting 10 targets each week no matter what.
So do you think he's putting in less work on the jugs and all that? Why did he drop those passes?
I could see putting in a little bit less work on the jugs, walking in. Instead of showing up 10 minutes early, now it's, 5 minutes. It's, hey, this offense should revolve a little bit around me a little more because we're not doing anything. We're not winning games.
Right, give me the ball.
Give me the ball.
But he dropped two of them.
Well, with Waller a little off and Davante Adams really unable to get open since that first week, Derek Carr, he's been forced to find other targets. Who has stepped up specifically last week against the Titans for the Raiders?
Well, we know Hollins stepped up. The bigger 6'4", 220 pounds. I think Mac Hollins is his name. But I think that's a result of a lot of attention going to Davante Adams and also Darren Waller. Now, this guy has a chance to go one-on-one with a lot of receivers, but I got to say, he made some great catches, too. He made a clutch catch at the end of the game to give them an opportunity to go for 2, but they weren't able to close the deal out. But he's a great player. He's a player that you cannot overlook. We got to make sure that we cover him as well.
And that's what scares me. He's not like a little smaller guy that's coming in there. He's every bit of 6'4", and he could absolutely go up and get it.
Cortland Sutton type.
Yeah, when you start looking at the fact that Josh McDaniels and Mark Davis had a closed-door meeting, if I'm Davante Adams, I'm screaming, give me the ball. I had 17 targets week 1. Why have I dropped down to 10 week 3? So So there's a lot of weapons on this offense. And oh, by the way, Josh Jacobs is coming out the backfield, right, and running the football. So the Broncos cannot allow this record to get to their head and not come out and throw haymakers, because I anticipate the Raiders coming out and saying, yeah, we have lost these games, but we still have enough offensive firepower to light up the scoreboard if you allow us.
Yeah, on the defensive side of the ball, the Raiders, they rank in the bottom half of the league in pretty much every statistical category. So what is going on with the Raiders defense right now, and how did the Broncos expose that this week?
Well, one, they're not really putting a lot of pressure on quarterbacks. Although they have Max Crosby.
Chandler Jones hasn't done
They also
much
have
at
Chandler
all.
Jones, but Chandler Jones doesn't have, he has 0 sacks on the year. Now, Crosby, he's going to always do his thing. So he's the person we got to worry about right now. But I imagine Chandler Jones is itching to get back there to the quarterback as well. And then they haven't really caused a ton of turnovers, and they're losing that turnover battle by a couple of turnovers. So I think that's impacted them. Whereas our defense has caused some turnovers. We only have 1 interception on the year, but we have several caused fumbles and fumbles that we've recovered. So I'm sure the Raiders are aware of that, and they're going to try to come out this week and try to cause some more turnovers.
Max Crosby for this Raiders defense is Mr. Everything, right? He's going to line up, look over the right tackle, the left tackle. He's going to get out there for certain downs and distance and be lining up against the guards and center. He loves that spin move, and he's very effective doing it. So he could rush the passer. So if I am Nathaniel Hackett, I got to find where Max Crosby is and make sure I take care of him first. As far as a guy like Chandler Jones, I hate to say it, but it's not the Chandler Jones of Arizona. It's not the Chandler Jones when he was in New England. Last year, he had finished the season with 9 sacks. Well, in 1 week, he had 5 sacks against Taylor Lewan, and then only had 4 for the remainder of the season. So, but he's also getting a little bit more crafty in what he's doing. So if you're a guy like Garrett Bowles, coming off a game where you had a holding call, coming off a game where you had a sack, look for Chandler Jones to try to, kind of flare out there and trying to get that call from the referee. Hey, ref, he's holding me. So you still have to play a very clean game, but there are holes in this defense for the Broncos to attack.
Steve, what do you attribute to Chandler Jones's rough start to the season?
It's washed up.
Well, that may be it. I think going into a new environment is, can sometimes be different. Sometimes how the coaches play you and how you're preparing may be different. But he definitely doesn't look the same as he looked in the past. Yeah. And I'm hoping that he doesn't pick it up this week.
I kid a little bit, but, Chandler Jones is a little bit of an older player, right? Yeah. And Josh McDaniels does come from that tough, physical training camp background, right? So if you're a guy like Chandler Jones that you're getting towards the back half of your career, maybe you have to take a little bit more veteran days in training camp, and maybe that's why you're not starting off fast, because your workload was a little bit too much during the offseason leading up to this thing.
Fair enough. Well, coming up here after the break, a couple key matchups to keep your eyes on as these 2 AFC West foes go at it this Sunday. You won't want to miss it. Welcome back to Broncos Weekend, everyone. Before we wrap things up here, we have to take a look at a few key matchups to watch for this week in Sin City, starting with the signal callers Russell Wilson and Derek Carr. We got our first real glimpse of Dangerous on Sunday night against the 49ers as he led this team down the field for the go-ahead touchdown. But guys, what do you need to see more of from him this week up against the Raiders?
The threat of run. I thought that's why he was so successful when he had successful plays against the 49er defense. Being able to step up in the pocket, pull the ball down, make it look like you're going to run, and then all of a sudden it's a nice little shovel pass to a Melvin Gordon that rips off an explosive play. Defensive coordinators know how to scheme it up for the 5 guys that are eligible to go out there and catch passes. What they can't scheme up is to account for the quarterback every single play. So the more Russ continues to do with his legs and possess that threat of running, the better off this offense is going to be.
Yeah, that's what I think people want to see. They want to see more of Russ using his legs. I got to be honest, I'm okay with the way Russ is. I'm okay with him not running the ball too much, because the game that we lost and the games where we haven't really done spectacularly on offense, I wouldn't necessarily put that on Russ. I would say we still got to get those penalties down. We got to make sure that we're staying on sides and that we're doing everything else. All the other players got to do their part too. But I think Russ has done a good job, so I'm good with that. one thing I would like to see is push the ball down the field a little bit more. I know a lot of fans are saying that as well. We've thrown the ball down the field. Hasn't been as accurate as he's been in the past, but I think that's going to come along as we get further into the season. It's going to get better and better and better.
How do you get this offense firing on all cylinders? How do you continue to be one of the most elite defenses in the league? You guys have the players. Now you got to go out there and execute. What I can tell you this year that hasn't been here the last couple years is the fact that these coaches have executed and they have put in some game plans that have been really, really exciting. And I just look at that last drive in the San Francisco games. We lose those games in previous year. And the reason why we're winning those games is because this whole team trusts us that, hey, we have a quarterback in number 3 that, although it doesn't look good for all 60 minutes, as long as we keep it close, he gives us an opportunity to win.
Right.
So at the end of the game on Sunday night, we saw the defense just do their job. We saw special teams just do their jobs. We didn't see those guys try to go make the spectacular play and say, oh, we got to take it upon ourselves to score. No, they still trust in Russell Wilson and Nathaniel Hackett that the offense were going to figure it out. And the offense figured it out, and you were able to score one more point than San Francisco 49ers and got a W because of it.
Yeah.
Couldn't have said it any better.
Appreciate you, guys.
I love the love. You guys, I think Derek Carr, though, this week, he really does want to inspire his group. And if he's able to start connecting with Davante Adams the way that he did week 1, I think that would really get his group going. But, of course, we all know, Pat Surtain II, he is not going to let that happen. So how do you guys see the Broncos utilizing Pat Surtain this week up against Davante? Is it going to be a 1v1 kind of situation, or do you think they might double team him like Davante has been?
That's a good question. I would imagine we'll see some of Pastor Tan on Davante Adams, but they also have Darren Waller, and I don't know that do we have another person on the team that can just go man for man on Darren Waller or not? It'll be interesting to see. I'd like to see if Caden Stearns can do it, or PJ Locke can link up with Darren Waller and see if they can slow him down as well. But they got 2 great receivers. We're going to have our hands full, but yeah, having Pastor Tan, that makes everybody sleep better at night.
Yeah.
So for me, I get a little frustrated and a little nervous about this week's game, to be honest with you guys, on the defensive side when it comes to covering these guys. Because who leads the Raiders in receiving yards? Max Hollins. Broncos historically have been bad against tight ends. Well, you got one of the best ones that are coming in the league, coming in this week. And Davante Adams, he could easily handle 150 targets a year and probably catch 75% of those. So I think when you start looking at it, the firepower that this Raiders offense has, that you cannot just say, hey, Surtain, you're going to follow somebody. Mm-hmm. I think you start this game off by playing your defense and saying it's about us. Yeah. And if this Raiders team has now designed it and dialed it up for a specific person, then at that point, maybe you have to put Pat Surtain on them. Or at that point, maybe you're saying, hey, you know what, we're going to put Justin Sternad in to help cover underneath Darren Waller, and we're going to have safety over the top help. I think Ezer Evero has done a heck of a job with his adjustments in games. Mm-hmm. So I wouldn't be shocked if the Broncos just come out and they're playing and not allowing anybody to travel, but quickly get to that if they're being exposed by one of these Raiders offensive players.
Yeah, I agree. Coach Evero, man, he's done an amazing job getting those guys bought in, first of all, and then just put them in position to make plays.
Yeah. Well, for the Broncos offense, they finally scored in the red zone last week, and they could find even more success this week going up against the Raiders. They have the 30th ranked red zone defense in the league right now. So what is the key for success for the Broncos in the red zone this week?
Run the ball. Let's continue to run the ball, baby. I just love it. Just a simple G League play. You know, it's just simple. Hey, we're going to pull Dalton Risner. You're going to kick out the end man in the line of scrimmage. Hey, Andrew Beck, you have the first linebacker to that side. And now we're going to play power football. And Melvin Gordon, we're going to give you the ball and let you be a battering ram and shove it up in there. Just run the football. It looks so easy. Heck, Steve, I'm 34 years old. My back hurts. My knee hurts. Everything hurts. And I could have got through
You could have got through that one?
And scored that touchdown.
Great blocking on that play.
At 2:30?
At 2:35.
Okay, all right. There we go. I would say continue to not have the mistakes. Keep the penalties off. When we don't have the penalties, we are a much better football team. We move the ball consistently. we make the plays. When we have penalties, it goes the exact opposite way. And the guys have been honed in. They were honed in last week, especially during that drive that we needed to score that touchdown in. And the guys, they buckled down and they were focused. And that's what I think is the biggest key once they get in the red zone, to continue to stay focused, keep that focus, keep going hard, and score a lot of points.
Yeah, only 5 penalties last week. Hopefully that number keeps going down, but a huge improvement, obviously, from the 13 the week before. Guys, before we get out of here, one matchup that you are keeping a close eye on this week that we have not mentioned so far.
That we have not mentioned so far. Javonte Williams against Denzel Perryman. Okay. Denzel's my brother. Javonte Williams, I talked about it, the highlight. I was excited for him to get more highlights, but I know Denzel Perryman is a keyed-in guy and ready to lay the hammer too. So I want to see who continues to deliver body blow after body blow, and basically who concedes at some point during the fourth quarter.
Well, the right tackle position is a position that many people had questions about going into the season. Coming to the last game, we thought it was going to be Calvin Anderson, and then it ended up being Cam Fleming. And Cam Fleming has played 100% of the plays so far this year. So I'm interested to see how he's going to block Max Crosby. That's going to be one heck of a battle. I'm going to be watching it closely. And I think that Cam Fleming is a guy who can handle Max Crosby, and he'll do a good job with him. But, hey, we got to wait till the game comes.
Exactly. You guys, this is a winless Raiders team. Winless means hungry. So how do the Broncos just avoid the trap game that this really could be?
You understand this rivalry, understand that it means something. You understand the fact that this is a divisional game. We always talk about the easiest way to punch your postseason ticket is taking care of the division. Well, this is your first opportunity to take care of your division. And if I'm the Broncos, I'm thinking about this football team hasn't beat the Raiders in their house since Peyton Manning left. Well, that's over 6 years ago.
Yep.
So you have looked horrible with that. And you got to play into the fact that Mark Davis and Josh McDaniels had a closed-door meeting and understand that this team's going to come out swinging. Look at the task that's at hand and just focus on how you come out 1-0 this week. You don't focus on anything else. I know you got a short week next week playing on Thursday Night Football, but it's all about the Raiders and how you wrap it up this week.
Yeah, I'm going to go back to something you said a little bit earlier. Oh, it's not about the Raiders. It's about the Broncos. Yep. And I believe it's about the Broncos' mindset, the mindset that we're going to come out right from the start, we're going to dominate, and then we're going to dominate the second quarter, the third quarter, fourth quarter, and then punch them in the mouth right there at the end and get the dub.
I love the passion. That was my favorite thing that you've ever said on this show.
Hey, I'm serious, man. Hey, we got to be ready.
Pounding the table.
Yes.
Steve might give you 5 or 6 reps this week.
No. Can't do that.
Well, that is all the time we have for Broncos Weekend, everyone. Check back in on Tuesday for a full game recap on Broncos Country Connected. And given the short week next week, this show will be back Wednesday night at 5 o'clock to preview the Broncos and Colts Thursday night football matchup. For Steve Atwater and Orlando Franklin, and of course our entire Broncos broadcast crew, I'm Alexis Perry. We will see you next Wednesday.